Welcome to Alive on One, a miniature gaming podcast. I'm Steven today. I'm here today also with Jin.
Hey, folks.
Hey, Jin. How's it going?
It's going good, man. Missed you.
Missed me? Where was I?
I don't know. I haven't seen you in less than 72 hours, you know?
Okay. You're being a brat. And we're also here today with Ben. How's it going,
I'm Ben. That's me. That's
Ben
me.
has been on here before, but he's also a regular part of Gamestore Guardians as well as other media, right?
Yes. So my main squeeze is Gamestore Guardians, which is a irregular podcast that you can catch us on all of the cool things. But my wife and I are thinking about revitalizing the married couple protocol. So I'm trying to find sustainable ways to do that, which our main outlet on that is YouTube. So you can check us out there.
I actually just found out about that this weekend. That's why I was like, in other things.
And other things. Yeah. We were really ambitious to start, wanting to do like regular, battle reports and all that stuff. And it takes a long time to edit stuff.
Yep.
And I don't like Dewey. So
turns out I'm lazy.
Turns out I hate everything about that. So yeah.
It's funny because recently the Facebook just popped up a feed for a video from you guys 2023. You're about to start an ACO team tournament. You were so bright-eyed, so bushy-eyed. It was like, we have such hopes to win this team tournament. It was very sweet, actually.
Yeah, such dreams and hopes crushed later by an unsuspecting Jin. No.
Jin's watching the video, like he's like, I'm going to lick the tears off your face.
Right. I'm going to thwip all over you. Yeah, it was great. It's great.
Cool. And I guess on that note too, so I don't know if people will actually end up listening to this. So this part, a lot of people will skip. So I'm going to say it when we launch the timestamp. I'm going to trick them.
Got him.
So I just have to. So yeah, I guess in terms, we just got back from Cap'n Con in Rhode Island. That was a great time. We, as usual, actually, that was like a really great set of people. Besides Waller, everyone there I really loved, except for the mics there. It was amazing. No, it really was. I was talking to someone beforehand, and I was like, I like all these people. So it was kind of a local conglomeration of like some Midgard, some Maine, some New Jersey, some upstate New York, like Ben and Alyssa, and then Rhode Island, and as well as like people that play out of the Battle Standard, kind of like tournaments that Jin hosts that I go to pretty regularly. So
yeah, also some new people too that are just like they're diving back into Marvel again, and that was also nice to see. So we had a nice spectrum of great like audience members, players, a lot of familiar, and unfamiliar places. It was nice to see everybody.
Yeah, and if the guy who came up to me was trying to talk to me about Dormammu while I was mid-game, I'm sorry. I was focused on the game, and he was like saying things like, okay. So apologies. I didn't mean to be an asshole. But yeah, I think he was pretty excited about Dorm, so keep on trucking, man. Or Dorman, I guess. Cool. So hobby catch up. At least for me, I've been painting my Slanesh commission. But before the tournament, I ended up finishing Lockjaw, and I was really trying to get Emma done because in my dorm list, I wanted 2 4s. I wanted Emma and Spectrum. But she's 2 models, so it took me a little longer. So
that's where they get you.
I know. I was like, I have to make 2 models. It is actually kind of annoying, but Transformers aside, I've also started to work on some Nurgle Magakin actually. So got 2 big uncleansed diaper babies, so that's fun. Anyone else?
I had to assemble a Yondu for that tournament. That is the extent of my hobbying so far.
It's a lot, Jin.
I know.
Do your fingers hurt?
Yeah, but I think I'll manage.
You manage, all right. Carpal tunnel.
Ah.
I built this one model, and now they have to amputate my hand.
Ooh, not going to do one of these for another 3 weeks.
At least. Ben, anything?
Yeah, I continue to just be my wife's cheerleader as she builds the models, primes the models, paints the models, and then I just get to play with them. So,
Well, anything cool of recent? Nope.
We finally got our hands on a Spectrum Blue Marvel box, and we're really excited about a potential conversion. So here's the challenge is I'm the idea guy. I'm like, hey, wouldn't this be cool? I have no idea how you're going to do it, but this is what I think would be really cool.
Oh, got it. It's like a backseat modeler.
Yeah, very much so. Very much so. So I'm really excited to see how Alyssa incorporates that idea. And I don't want to give too much away. She sometimes doesn't like when I tell people about the scheme, so that if it doesn't work together, nobody needs to know. Right?
Right. You're not on the hook to deliver on said like thing.
Yeah.
My craziest scheme that I had once, and this is why 40K is like a dangerous game for hobby for me, because I get really into the lore, so I like know all the backstories. And the Dark Angels are based on like Knights of the Round Table basically. And so I had this huge idea to make this diorama with like each like model representing like a different knight. So I have like a Merlin one with like a sorcerer or some shit.
That's really cool.
I know it never happened, but it's the thought that counts, right?
But boy, that idea was really cooking.
Yeah, it was sick in my head. I bought this like little table actually off Etsy, like this classical kind of like I think it was made probably for D&D or something table, and was about to commit it. And then I was like, this is a lot of work because I was gonna like make like I was gonna paint up like a big knight as like Lancelot or something like that. So here we are. Well, that's cool. Excited to see whether or not that idea comes to fruition or not, but only you'll know. So.
Right. Yeah. Well, and our listeners now of whether or not the idea was tested or not.
Yeah.
I'm sure she'll love that I'm like, hey, by the way, I put this on a podcast. Good luck.
Well, you didn't say what it was, so we'll never know.
We'll never
know. Cool. So we'll just shoot through these upcoming event announcements. Our local Battle Standard is tentatively shooting for a March 1st date for a tournament, which is a Sunday. You can come to that. The Alive on One charity tournament, where some sort of proceeds will go to Dana-Farber, is March 21st, which is a Saturday, which I'll be TOing. Jin may or may not be. It depends on attendance, honestly. Like, you can play Jin if there's not a lot of people, so...
I would love it if I had the TO because we had so many people. So please come out, everybody.
Yes, and so I'll be dropping that like it's hot over the next month, or maybe in a couple of weeks it'll start to happen where I'll just post it everywhere, which I kind of already have been. But trying to get, we had 40-something people last year. It is the week before Adepticon, which is problematic for a lot of people's travel plans, unfortunately. But it's a one-day thing, so especially if you're local, just drive on up for that Saturday. Everything goes to a good cause, and I haven't worked on any new T-shirts, but I'm assuming I will? Question mark. But I also want to take donations for that. But okay, I have a lot more. I got some stuff I got surrounded.
It appears like it. But yeah, for those going to Adepticon, though, maybe this is a great last-minute prep session, right? That you can do. Put a
try one of your timeline lists if you're Maddox, something like that.
Yep.
And then Ben has a couple events. He's got one in 2 days on Saturday the 7th in Syracuse at Comic Zone, and another one in April. Ben, anything you want to say about that?
If you're in the upstate New York or in the New York vicinity, we pretty regularly now are having events at the Comic Zone in Syracuse, New York. So if that's something that would be interesting to you that you'd like to check out, just hit me up on the Discords, or more accurately, probably my wife, because she responds in a timely manner and I don't. So yeah, it's really cool stuff. We have 15 people signed up already, so it's going to be a good crowd.
I was going to ask you how big your community was out there. 15's nice, solid.
Yeah, so it wasn't super great for a while, and myself and Keebler are really trying to recreate the community in Syracuse, and I'm thankful for people continuing to come and try stuff out. We're going to get a player kit here soon, according to AMG, so we're really excited about giving out some swag as well.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
probably.
That sweet purple dice.
I like the gold ones better, honestly, but the purple ones are okay.
Oh no, I'll do unspeakable things for blue dice. I did at one point during Capticon. One of my blue dice bounced like in this most absurd way, and I was like, "On my clock, I'm finding this die." So he was like, "Man, you really like that die?" I was like, "You have no idea."
Meatloaf starts playing.
Right. Unspeakable things for blue dice.
Awesome. Okay, so blah blah blah.
Well, now you have to riff until it's 11:30 before you put the timestamp.
All right, thank you for joining us. If you hit the timestamp, I wanted to announce this just in general for those who are interested. So we're actually going to start. I wouldn't consider it live on. It's a live on one, but it's not going to be the same people. We're diving into Age of Sigmar, so we're going to start producing every 3 weeks. We're going to start producing Age of Sigmar content. I'll be on some of those, kind of like pulled out of the rotation. So like Thursday, releases on Thursday. So MCP Thursdays. Nothing will interrupt the schedule for MCP. So you don't give a shit about AOS. Just listen to Thursday's episode. But Mondays or Tuesdays we'll end up releasing the AOS every 3 weeks. So not like every week. Just don't have the time to do that, to be honest, or edit all that. So that's what we wanted to do with Shatterpoint, but Waller's still a child. So, and with that,
God,
I'm sorry, Mike.
There's at least 2 episodes of Shatterpoint that have been recorded. I have been present.
There's 3 or 4. Yeah.
3 or 4. Yeah, at this point. So,
yeah, no, I know. I just wanted it on a regular schedule, but I don't play it enough to like do that myself. But maybe I will someday. So we'll see. And to be fair, Waller has been busting my balls offline constantly this week, so I'm giving it right back on air without him here.
You better not miss an AOS deadline, man, because you're going to just get that shit right back at you now.
Yeah, well, whatever. So thank you for hitting the timestamp, and now we will actually talk about. So I guess I'll just give a background on where this is coming from. So this is partly like Jin joined us about a year ago, maybe more, but it's definitely been like almost a year, if not a year. And Jin was running kind of these videos. I don't think I stole the idea from you. I think it's something we've always considered doing. But Jin's been running these videos about or has them. They're up and you can watch them about like making your game better, or just like pointing out little nuances. And I think as at least myself, I can't speak for either of you, but like I get pretty down sometimes, but I'm constantly trying to like make lists of ways to improve and like ways to get better at this game and like kind of level up your game. I forget what I called this series exactly. Is it just upping your competitive game, which is really lame, but here we are. That's exactly what it's as advertised. So this is going to be an ongoing series where we talk about basic concepts in the game and basically what you can do to like get better or strategies to improve your game. I know getting better at miniature games is like kind of a part of playing competitively. So looking for your mistakes and moving away from like dice blaming, I think it's just a general thing we'll always talk about. But yeah, anything to add either?
So for me, I want to come in the sense that, I have put out content in the very similar manner that, that content was created about a year or so ago at this point. So I've also grown a little more as a player. So I would like to think that even if we may be discussing topics that may breach on repeating some ideas or like revisiting ideas, it still might be good just to do it as a new perspective, as the crisis evolved, characters, designs have changed and whatnot. So I think there's still something very much we can have a fruitful discussion about, right? At the end of the day, Stephen.
Yeah, and there's a lot to talk about because there's like so many subtopics within each phase of the game. So if you like split the game into like pre-game and then like during game and then like I don't know, there's just so much you can like split these into, and there's always areas for you to improve in each of these things. And I agree. Like I think a year, you look back a year on your career and MCP if you're playing competitively, and like usually you see a pretty good degree of. And if you're kind of stuck in a rut, sometimes like revisiting, listening to people talk about different tactics or ways to improve can be immensely helpful. I think I just have like an idea in my head about like practicing more. Because it's something I'm working on. So there's a lot here. So yeah, we invited Ben on because Ben's a dude. No, I'm just kidding.
Yep.
No, I think Ben, you have a very, at least when we've played teaching games, you have a very like good mind for like you don't care when we're doing a teaching game. Like a lot of people will put, they'll have the intention to put things on the table and be like, we're doing a teaching game, and then it ends up just like they care about winning, right? Yeah. and it becomes like not a teaching game, and you're just kind of playing the game and not really learning any lessons. And I think in terms of, at least in my experience of teaching with you, and I know Jin does practice games with you too for the same reason, about getting better or seeing things you missed, or like just doing openings, things like that for like an hour, So I thought you were an invaluable resource to bring on here.
Well, thank you. Yeah. I find, especially with my competitive MCP career, getting the value of time spent well, right? I mean, time is a valuable resource for everybody. And so understanding some things that you can work on as a player, having, goals and representing those goals in meaningful ways is really important. And I really love our topic that we're going to be talking about today that I don't think enough people who want to better their game spend time on. And so I'm really excited to talk about this stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And with that in mind, too, it's like, I know personally there's like 2 or 3 things I'm working on right now. Man, I want to say like a generalist thing, basically. So I think like if you're going into getting better, playing competitively, you can't get better at everything all at once.
Yeah.
So you have to focus in on like small stuff, specific. And you do that by identifying your weaknesses. And it's actually like stuff we're talking about today as well is like something I'm working on, maybe not this specifically, characters and missions, but more like turn 0 is like a huge thing, a huge miss for a lot of players, including myself. Like I'm not going to sit here and tell you I deploy perfectly, so it's definitely something that I think anyone can benefit from. And if you're like a veteran and you're like, oh, you're arrogant, like you're like, I can't learn anything from this. I think you can there's always a different perspective that someone else has that you can like definitely benefit from. And I'm not saying.
I'm just saying, as a guy that's actually literally made deployment videos, I still can work on more deployment.
There you go. Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry, go ahead, Pork.
Oh, I was just going to say, but Jin's the like most humblest person in MCP, so.
Those attrition Jin does have some buttons you can push though, and those are really fun to do. So not that I would ever do that to my good old pal teammate Jin.
It's like the Krusty the Clown like doll in the Treehouse of Horror. It's just like attrition mode or like
right, exactly. Attrition Jin, a whole nother Jin.
Who am I seeing today?
I'd love to see it.
That guy is poking holes in my tires.
Jin / my car.
You switch. Here's your problem, sir. You switch to attrition Jin.
Oh, don't worry. That's not Jin. That's attrition Jin.
It's attrition Jin. Don't worry about it. He didn't really actually mean it. Yeah. No, one of my favorite MCP stories is something that actually happened just a couple of months ago in terms of learning to continue to improve your game. Jen and I, when we go to WTC, a couple of the other guys, we end up going there early, use it vacation. Well, Jen and I were there before a couple of the other guys. We got a nice big room, and we had a non-standardized table, thanks Europe. And we found a way to still get 2 practice reps in for the WTC. With like no terrain, we used bottles and candy bars and just other stuff that we had lying around the hotel room, because there were still things just days before the event that we can improve on. And one of the things that came out of that was Jin was prepared for his very last game against the Pat Dumford. And I would like to say, I'm going to lift this up, that without those extra 2 games that we played, that game could have gone a little bit differently. So it pays off to keep practicing, keep looking at it, and you too could beat a Pat Dumford. Right,
true.
Jen?
Yep, 100%. With these tips, you too, sirs, can beat a Mr. Pat Dumford.
Subscribe and leave a review.
So,
Smash that like button.
We shout out to Pat Dumford. He's a gentleman card and a great player. It was a very good experience to play him. I'll just say that before we move on.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Oh, Ben, I might be going to WTC this year, too. But
oh, love it. And I, too, can yell at you days before the event. It's wonderful. Right, Jen?
Well, if you can find Rob and I, you can yell at us.
Oh, don't worry. I yell at Rob all the time. It's a beautiful thing.
Cool. We are still riffing. All right. So today's topic, we have fooled you with the timestamp. I should read.
Got him.
Timestamp part 2. Let's go.
We'll do 22. So yeah. Dead Space. For 10 seconds. Why don't I just change the timestamp? All right. So today we'll be talking about our topic to improve your game is turn 0. So the characters and missions. And there's a lot to cover here, I think. So I think the first step that we can talk about, and keep in mind that this series is really designed for competitive players. We're not trying to necessarily snowflake. We'll give you, I think we'll talk a little bit about strategies to do that. Because you can, but like, some people like to bring a model just because they really like it. And maybe that's not an idea that, well, you can include. I don't know. We'll kind of like touch on snowflaking, but for the most part, we're in this we're in the competitive like mind space here. We're not like necessarily talking about like how you can construct a list of new mutants using all affiliated models. I'm just going to tell you straight up, it's not good.
Yeah. That being said, though, I mean, like your affiliation does matter quite a bit, right? At the end of the day, because that's going to provide tactics cards and leadership, right? So even though there are affiliations out there that are, your common ones like New Mutants, I mean, people have found ways to make like, that teleport work, right? And to really like bring in some really good firepower, with that free movement. So it's not like it's impossible, but yeah. If you're just trying to play very lore friendly, a lot of limiters on yourself. And we've talked about this, the idea of like, what restrictions are you putting on yourself, right? When you're building a list, the more restrictions you pull on your list, the harder it is to maybe make it to get your list to a power level, right? Where it's going to like, it'll hang in events. That's my opinion, at least.
Yeah. And I think like with that in mind too, like, so you could bring a New Mutants list, like, and make it synced up, but like expecting a certain result is often a thing with those kind of like maybe suboptimal lists sometimes. How do I phrase it? So like, if you're bringing New Mutants and it's not completely tuned up or whatever, but it's like tuned up enough, maybe you got Red Skull in there, maybe you got Taskmaster, so you're like thinking a little bit outside the box. But like even still, there's probably a meta monster out there that just like spanks you. So, you can 2-2, 3-1. Like I'm just saying, like when you pick an affiliation, you're also kind of committing to like at its most optimized level with the perfect gameplay. This list goes, for the most part, maybe doesn't win the event. They sometimes MCP is surprising. Like I'm not going to say that doesn't happen. I'm just saying expectation tournament over tournament might be a little bit lower for something like that, right?
Yeah, and I think I should head off the first is that, just because you don't win a tournament or you necessarily win all your matches doesn't necessarily mean that your list was necessarily bad, right? To begin with. The thing I need to people, again, like we were just, please give yourself grace. Yeah, I just want to head that off at the pass first. That if your list isn't performing at the right well, then it's good to think about, like, it's like, okay, is there things that you can really identify that have been holes during the gameplay or during the list building? And we can sort of like take it from there, like what you need to improve on, right? As far as either model selection or how you're even just piloting it in the first place. But sometimes also, there are some dice situations that can happen, but try not to go to that first, right?
Yeah.
I think that's
at all costs, like, try to leave dice out of it if you're trying to look at it. They do happen. I know it happens, but like, there's probably something you could have done slightly better.
Yeah, I would say try to exhaust every explanation of why something bad happened besides the dice first before you go to dice, right? Which is hard to do. I understand this, listeners, but it will benefit you in the long run the more you're able to just not reflexively just go to dice, right?
Yeah.
Because
I know I blame dice sometimes when I should. At least initially. Maybe
so
after.
I'm I'm still traumatized by that Midnight Suns game, Steven, where like everything was just awful.
Oh,
that
was a lot of fun for me.
But like it's love to see it.
Love to see it.
No, but really, yeah, you do yourself a disservice, right? If you don't look for reasons, things that are with your control, right, that you can have agency over, to do. So that's more of a gameplay specific thing. So I just want to set that at first. And then in the context of like building characters, right, you should think about, I think, what the affiliation you want to bring first is, or is there like a character or set of missions or archetype that you want to go for? I guess then, Ben, when you're looking to play a mission, are you going by an archetype first? Are you going by an actual physical affiliation first, characters first? What do you do to start an affiliation build for yourself?
Yeah, that's a great question. So for me, and I was just talking to a couple of people about this last week as we were kind of anticipating Captain Con. For me, I choose my crisis selection on what Ben wants to play. Not necessarily the affiliation, not necessarily the characters that I'm bringing. What do I think I can comprehend the best? And then I'm going to try to approach and bring an affiliation that I think is going to do well on these crisis selections. So I tend to, if you look at a lot of my rosters in different affiliations, there are going to be some similarities in the crisis selections because I feel good on these ones. Now, it's always important to play the entire berth and know how to play them and know what your strengths at or the things, because sometimes now, allegedly, this could happen to you. You call out an opponent on another team, not fully aware that they have a web's flex, and not fully aware that you would pick their secures, understand that they have 2D list secures, and your team doesn't really function that well. That might happen to you. Allegedly, and if you're, a big brain person like I am, but sometimes it works out for you because you know how to approach those games at their very best and at their very worst. So, but that would never happen to any of our listeners here, right? Because they're all pros, and that would never happen to them.
Yeah, I think all of our listeners are very literate, and they would be able to look at an opponent's list first, Ben. Right?
Yeah, reading is hard.
I am proud of our listeners because they are literate and very smart and very handsome people.
Yeah.
Well,
we don't know more than half of them, to be fair.
That's all right. No. They're all beautiful people.
I am taking this on pure faith, Pork.
I'm sure they could read better than Ben can. So.
That's true. I like pictures. So it is important to kind of go into the list building with that framework of what are you trying to accomplish, and then you can kind of fit a mold of how do I best do that thing? Now, some people approach their list building as I'm going to bring this affiliation, and so they kind of take it in the opposite direction. And that's not bad either. It's just a kind of a preference thing.
Yeah, I know that I do that because it's mostly based on like, well, I'm trying to think. Like, I think there's multiple things going on in picking an affiliation. First, like a serious one, right? There's also that, like, putting something on the table to try it out might be slightly different than when you're like, I'm committed to playing this. And I think it's important when we're talking about kind of turn zero competitively. And this is a theme that's come up for me over and over again. Switching lists too often. So like making sure you pick a list that you're going to have fun mechanically with, I think is like super important for longevity. And being able to basically like some of the best players or whatever, they're going to run these lists to death. So they're getting reps and reps and reps, so they know every single situation that can occur with a certain list or a certain leadership, right? So I think it's important, like if you're picking your affiliation, to like keep in mind that like even before you pick your missions, like what do you get access to, right? Like maybe look at the amount of how much long, like you're picking webs or something like that, right? Like now you have like 3 to 5 models that have long moves, so you can like use speed as an advantage, or read the reroll affiliations. Now you can kind of play like a more attrition game. So I think it's really important to kind of like look at the leadership, look at the affiliated characters, and then look at like what are some like commonalities here, and like what do you have access to as like in terms of gameplay.
Yeah, and I think you guys both make a really good point that like intrinsically, like the missions and the affiliation should work together in tandem, right? To make sure that it's going to function together. It's going to allow you to access like your win conditions, right? So, if you're playing a scoring team, you want to make sure that the scoring missions are in play. And then like if you're playing attrition, right, that like, the affiliation should lend itself to an attrition archetype. And then you can take like what I would like to call Ben Crisis. So, yep.
Yeah. The ones what everyone's here for. We're here to fight.
Yep. All right. Yes. But then there's also stuff that, it's more like, middle of the ground, very fair scoring. And that's where, you have your Avengers, like, that are more middle of the road, right? As well. So let's continue to riff as Stephen has just dropped from this call.
Oh, yes. Good old Stephen. So, Jin, when you're list building, okay?
Yes.
When you're list building, how do you prepare if you're a scenario team, how do you prepare for an attrition matchup? Like, are you just going, dear God, don't hit me hard, or what's the thought process?
I mean, you always pray that you don't hit you hard. Like that's a regardless thing. But the physical things that you can actually do, right, is that I think you want to look in the fact that are you on the secures of the opponent, or are you on the extracts of the opponent, right? So in that case, like, if there's limited amount of extracts, right, I want to make sure that I have abilities to peel off the extracts from people to get the extract lead, and then we can try to score it out over the course of turns, right? But if I am on, let's see, they're secures, right, and I have wide extracts, then I want to be able to probably leverage the ability to pick up more extracts than them, but also be able to sort of like break apart, like, any sort of like bunkers, right? If they have like a tight secure or attritions in that case, right? So really, you're just always still looking for your outs, despite if the map is not necessarily cooperative to you. And then this is where I think it's important for people to start thinking about role players in your list. And I think the three of us may have discussed this before, but I'll try to say it more succinctly for audience members. If you think about your squad, right, that you put on the field, there'll be characters that you are okay sort of to go first during the first round, and then characters you want to like have go later in the round on first round. And these roles can change on second round onward. So what I mean is, for instance, Luke Cage is a very interesting example of this, I think. So Luke Cage is a character that's very hard to kill. So you can kind of double walk them to a midline, especially in cover, and pick up something and not feel too bad about picking up something later on. Versus like a Red Skull, right, that has the ability to like huge amount of damage potential on the guy, but you don't want him just to be vulnerable picking up an object in the midline and be there for reprisal that first turn, right? So does that kind of make sense? It's like you kind of think of like role players as like, when do these characters want to go, like in and around?
Yeah. And to that note too, Jen, you should all when you're picking your characters or whatever, you should look at like the ability to power generate, right? Because like that'll heavily influence who wants to go first, like in how you set up future turns. So you use Red Skull. Red Skull 3 is a perfect example. He doesn't really, even though he can spend other people's power, doesn't really like picking up extracts. It puts him, in maybe a bad spot that he doesn't want to be in, and then with only a medium move, and then B, if he's not gaining, that 2 power turn 2 with like other characters around him having like access to power, turns on his kit like a lot faster, right?
Yeah, exactly. And the to follow up the what I just mentioned also, like second turn onward, things get strange, right? So like if you think about Red Skull beginning of round 2, he becomes a very interesting offensive piece, right? That you can immediately lay on a lot of like activation pressure on the opponent. So he can take away activations, right? And also like, take spots with his grunts and himself, whereas like, Luke can maybe go like later in the turn. Perhaps he's like bodyguards of some attacks, right? And then he's got some power, and maybe he can sweet Christmas somebody off a point, like later in the round. So these are kind of things I think about, Ben, where like when I'm thinking about going into somebody, right? If there's an attrition team, for instance, like, and I'm a scoring team, it's like, who am I willing to put up first, right? To do stuff. And if I don't have anyone that I want to do anything with first round, right, to possibly expose somebody while getting an extract or something, then I have to think about, it's like, well, can I afford to go down on points but try to come back later rounds, right, by trying to, harass their extract holders or, move people off after they've gone with displacements like Ghost Spider and stuff like that. So that all kind of flows through together, right? It's like you have to, like, when you're selecting your characters, you have to think about what do the rounds look like, I think. Does that make sense? Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think it's, one of the things I think that's a commonality is really trying to almost play those first couple of activations with a model in your mind, right? Mm-hmm. Say, hey, before even hitting the table, doesn't even necessarily matter what I'm playing against. How do I envision using this character the first, 1 or 2 times I get to activate them? So if your reason is I'm bringing Baron Zemo on this squad because, well, I just know that Baron Zemo is a good character, and so I can just kind of do whatever, but you don't necessarily have a plan of, how you're going to position, what you're trying to set up, you can leave yourself, for some disappointment. At least that's the kind of common trend that I heard in you as you were kind of talk about even, busting up, the little bunkers, right? That people will form. Having a plan on how to do that, I think is a big thing. One of the characters most recently that has forced me into this mentality of thinking is Clea. I love Clea, and the more and more I play with her, the more and more I find her joining some of my lists. And recognizing how she can just inherently set up some really nasty turn 1 stuff by being able to walk and place somebody range 2. And that opens up the field so much for a lot of other characters, just that little bit of extra movement. But if you're not, playing with it, if you're not necessarily, walking through the steps, you may miss that. So I think that's a really important habit to kind of get down for folks.
No, agreed. Yeah. So like visioning, like having a vision, right, for the characters helps a lot in your squad selection, right?
Yeah.
So to re-engineer that further back, right, you now have to think about, it's like, okay, what do characters look like in their first couple of rounds of the game? And that should dictate who you should be putting in your roster, right?
Yes.
So like, I was playing my Avengers for a little bit, and I have a leader in Spectrum, right? Spectrum is a character that I either will try to get an objective early, or this is a character that I will set up specifically to hit somebody with round one, and then we'll hopefully power up another attack in a following activation. And you sort of like understand like the role of the character by looking at the card. So I think it's important for people to first also just be familiar with their characters. This is kind of it's very obvious when you say it out loud, but like really think about like, it's like, what is this character trying to do? What is the kit asking it, giving it the ability to do, right? And what does it look like on the table for the first couple rounds?
Yeah, and furthermore, like when you're looking at your list in general, right? After you kind of like think about each character individually, you have to ask yourself like, what is my affiliation trying to do, especially in like my opening, of our first turn. So because you have all these pieces, and if you look at all of them, I guess like the reason I'm bringing this up is because if you're looking at all of them individually, and like, okay, how does this character's play pattern kind of affect their turn one? And you have like too many similarities, like, well, I want to go first with all five of my, for example, I want to go first with all five of my characters. It's like, all right, well, maybe you need someone who wants to go last, right? Something like that. I'm just bringing up a theoretical.
Yeah. I mean, like, yes, Steven, you could take 5 DR models that want to just run up the field first and try to football it, I guess.
Just say what up at it. Yeah.
Yeah, but
I have put a list together like that before, so
right. It's like, okay, so you have 5 models that all can take hits, right? But do they have displacement? Do they have good damage output? Can they affect the scenario? Like anyway, right?
And I was more just kind of saying too, like, you look at what your affiliation's trying to do, right? In general, like that is the leadership, and then affiliated models, and then like blah blah blah. But it's important to look at both, I think, simultaneously.
Right, and hopefully that you have chosen crises that match like with the stated abilities, right, of the affiliation plus characters, right?
Yeah, which comes down to like even backtracking even more to the beginning of this discussion, like when you're putting together an affiliation, and this is kind of a mix of everything we're talking about today, like based on missions and based on like what your characters can do, you kind of have to lean in the middle, or attrition, or mission playing. So like understanding like how you want to play. Like I know, Ben, you mentioned too at the beginning, you're like, oh, I really like playing on close maps. I realized a year ago, and I don't know why I haven't been reinforcing this when I play, I can play B maps really well, for example. So like that's a totally different kind of game than like a MCron or something. So but understanding that, like, based on your missions, based on your characters, like, I forgot where I was going with this. The thought just left my mind. So,
okay,
there it goes. So there it goes.
Well, actually, that's another point I do want to ask Steven. Like, so because you really like B shapes, right? Mm-hmm. Does that mean that you are drawn to affiliations that will let you play and excel in B shapes?
I haven't been, which I think is like part of the problem. Like, no. I mean, in all seriousness, like part of growing as a player is me like realizing basically, this weekend I was like, wait a minute, what am I doing? I love B maps. I can just. I was playing a practice game like this Sunday on CTS, and like we were just sitting there, and I was like, I really understand how B maps work. They're like, why don't you play B maps all the time, or B shapes, or things that are like B shapes? I was like, it's a really good question.
That's a great question. Yeah.
So,
and I think, really to it, that sometimes your favorite, lore-wise affiliation isn't going to play a style of game that you want to play.
Yep.
For example, I love X-Men. I grew up, watching the X-Men TV show. I love X-Men comics. But they really struggle in playing the game that I want to play, which is punch everyone really freaking hard. You can try to do that. I won a couple games, with Cyclops this week. But that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm giving them the best opportunity to be successful. And I think that's really important to kind of understand that just because you're bringing, this one certain list, doesn't necessarily mean they're going to function the way that you necessarily want them to function.
Or like be your strongest ability to play. Like you just said that phrase, like put yourself in the best position to do well, basically.
Right. 100%.
Yeah, which means it's sad days for me because it does inadvertently mean that Dorm's probably not someone that I should be playing.
You know who's really good at B shapes?
I know. Another blue man. I know, Jit.
Let me tell you about our old boy Apocalypse.
I may or may not have been playing that practice game on Sunday with said affiliation. So, no, I think those are all good points. And like, I think the name of the game here in turn 0, picking your characters and missions, is setting yourself up for success for what you put on the table. And that doesn't mean you shouldn't play affiliations that. I guess like there's a distinction here where we're talking about like when you go to a tournament and you want to do well, you're trying to put yourself in the best position possible to win your games. And if you're playing something else, like if Ben brings X-Men, I'm like, he's not taking this tournament necessarily with the intention of like, I'm going to like all out win or something,
No, I would disagree with that point because I think.
Okay.
In the sense that, like, you can make any affiliation essentially competitive in this game in some which way or form.
Well, that's not what I was saying. Like, there's a difference. Like, if your play style, like, you're really good on D maps, right? Like, you're so good on D maps. Your game plan, like, on D maps just always works out. And you bring, like, you bring Mcron and, like, you bring what Ben's brings every fucking tournament. Maybe you are not setting yourself up for like success in a way that like you're putting yourself in the most advantageous position competitively speaking. If you're good at all the missions, none of this will matter, right? But we're just talking about play style here, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm not saying like you shouldn't do that or you can't do well with something that's not like whatever, but picking your most optimized your ability to play at the most optimized level on the missions you do the best at. I mean, that's what Ben does, right? So
yeah, that's exactly what I do. It's those things that are, formative of how we're trying to play the game. Recognizing that, again, I love McCran. You've been pronouncing it wrong. It's McCran. And
not from the South.
And I really do think that because I'm very comfortable with how to play that game, it gives me an edge in some of my matchups where, how many people this last weekend complained about, a McCran rolls, right? Losing the 50-50, where I'm out here going, give me more. I want more. And that's just because of a level of familiarity and kind of, again, putting ourselves in the best position to be successful. And sometimes that's also just a state of mind. Bork, I think you were, getting to that point of recognizing, hey, I'm going to bring this affiliation. When I play Winter Guard, I'm going to do my best and try to be the best that I can be to be successful, because I think it's really funny when people lose to Winter Guard. But I also am not going to get super bent out of shape when I lose a matchup that I am just woefully unprepared for, because the affiliation struggles in that specific matchup, right? So I think it's a headspace thing of recognizing, hey, it's okay to not be the best at everything. No affiliation, and this is what I love about the new Crisis selection, is I don't think there's an affiliation in the game that has 5 good secures and 5 good extracts. And I think that was a wonderful adjustment by AMG to kind of recognize that truth, that you're just going to struggle, and sometimes you're a big old jerk, and you're going to pull both of your opponent's D-shape, secures, and it's going to be ridiculous.
A little scarred over that, eh?
Reading is hard, okay? But that's just going to happen, right?
Yeah.
So recognizing that you have some autonomy in what you're bringing, and also your own mental state. If you have some of those reps, like what we're talking about, your turn 0 is going to be a little bit more clean than if you hadn't had that opportunity to look at those reps. So I guess one of my questions for you, Jen, I know we've spent some time talking about this. How much planning do you do when you're making your rosters at certain threat values? So do you go through all right, at 17, this is my core. At 18, this is my core. How much time investment of, as we're talking about turn zero stuff, do you do going into that?
So for that one, there's a couple ways you can sort of approach it. I think when you're beginning to start off with affiliation, it's not a bad thing to have a core in mind. It's like, hey, these are like the 3 affiliated models that I would like to take most games. Let's say it's just a very well-rounded like core, right? Plus your leader. So that's okay to start with. As you get further on, though, and you have various characters in your affiliation at different threat values, that core becomes very fluid. And Aka, you actually should probably be free from a core unless a character is absolutely vital to the functionality of the team. So that's kind of how I would sort of approach it first. Is like a core is like what I would like to call training wheels for the affiliation if you're doing mono affiliated. You could have multiple cores if you do multiple affiliations, I guess, like in one roster, and that could be its own sort of like advanced thing. But that's a different topic for another day. We're approaching this from a model like affiliation standpoint, though. That's how I would sort of use the core. Now, as far as the breakdowns goes, I think it's actually really important that you go through the breakdowns because in this game, sometimes you want to oscillate between going like 4 wide, 5 wide, 6 wide, depending on what affiliation you have in the mission and opponent matchup. And it's good to sort of like know your options, right? So if you're doing McCran, if you're doing that mission, right, I think me personally, I'm finding that it's really important for you to have last activation, like in that mission. So if you can find a way to sort of make sure that you can engineer you having last turn by either taking out models or just making sure you're just wider or better activations so that you can go last. I think that's really important. You can do that by looking through your breakdowns. This is your various apps and whatnot. Don't be afraid to use the breakdown system in your apps. Get familiar with it. It's really helpful, right? To see what lists you can sort of concoct out of it while maintaining affiliation.
Yeah, and I like the make sure this model's here thing too. So if you're like, okay, I really like, say you're preparing for a specific matchup. This is Jarvis we're talking about, by the way. Say you're preparing a specific matchup and you're like, okay, let me try to think of an example.
So let's say you're on Marifist, right? You're playing Mighty Avengers, and you want to make sure you have Blue Marvel, right? And your list he's immune to stun, right?
Yeah,
for instance.
Yep, exactly. So you can like make sure he's there, and then pick your leader, and then like it gives you all your options, and you can kind of look through those. It also allows you to save them. So if you see a concoction that you really, really like, you can tag it, and it pops up. So if you're at a tournament and you're like, I can't remember that exact like 17. Into Midnight Suns or something, you can like go back if you saved it and you can just be like, oh yeah, I remember that 3rd character or that 4th character or something. So
on the flip side, Ben, how much time do you spend on the items that you mentioned?
So I actually really like your approach. That's generally how I do it. Is I don't necessarily spend a lot of time going, all right, in Web Warriors, this is my 17, this is my 18, this is my 19. I am trying to gain the best understanding of my affiliation, and that's often taking what core do I want, and looking at, is this an opportunity where I want to go tall or I want to go 5 wide. So that's the more and more I've been playing this game, is something that I've tried to value my time with, is trying to get an emphasis of, I really want to leverage priority because I'm an attrition player, and maintaining priority is super, super key if you're playing an attrition list. And I always tell people, if you're playing an attrition list, the way to play it is keep priority until it doesn't matter anymore, right? That's often the advice that I give, new slap players. And so it's important as, we continue to talk about turn 1, turn 2, or turn 0 and turn 1. How do you move forward in creating those opportunities as often as you can get them? For me, it's here's my core, here's what I'm trying to do, and there's going to be very few things that are going to push me off of that. Sometimes it does happen. You run into a Dormammu list, and you're like, oh, crap, I have no idea what this idiot is going to bring. And so you don't know if you're going to go tall or go wide. There's so many variables that it's hard to have all of the answers on turn 0, on turn 1. And that's not going to happen until you play those games. So I think that's an important way to look at your roster, is to do as much homework on your roster as possible, recognizing that you're not going to be able to answer all the questions. And I think that's okay.
Yeah. So what we could start doing, guys, and we can loop this back around the characters again, is we should talk about the missions and how they're structured, and sort of like think about them in terms of like what questions are they asking of the opponent, right? I think really like you're playing against the crisis, right? At the end of the day, like you're playing against your opponent, yes, but to win the game, you have to be able to manage to score in the crisis, or at least deny the opponent from scoring the crisis, right? So you have to understand the crisis in some way. So in terms of what I'll go first and just say, like, what I look at a crisis, right? I think about like, okay, how far are the map points from each other? How spread apart they are, and would they require like more than one movement? Basically, like one more advance to get from point A to point B, basically. So like, how far you have to move between like deadly meteors is really close for the most part if you're on the inside, but to rotate around a diamond shape like a D shape, it's a much harder ask, right, for some teams, depending on like how mobile they are. So in that sense, I try to account for the fact that it's like, okay, depending on the shape of the list, first of all, would that affect basically like who you choose in your roster? For instance, like, maybe there are some shapes where like I want like Red Skull because I know he's gonna just be there and punch people. Or like I really want Ultimate Spider-Man because he's a long mover with a web swing, so that means I really would like him in case there's a D map that's pulled up in that sense. So that's like one thing that I think about. And the other thing I think about is the victory point sort of like speed, right? So, a struggle for the cube is going to ask you for a lot. It's going to accelerate the game rounds, right? Because you're going to get to 16 a lot faster with 5 extracts on the board. Versus like, Alien Ship, right? That only has like 3, for instance. So those are the kind of things I kind of think about. And how do you think these sort of characteristics affect your list building? If there's anything else also in the crisis that would affect your list building?
Yeah, I think at least for me, pace, the speed you mentioned, I just call it something different. But like the pace of and I call them mission stacks. So like when you have a secure over an extract, the kind of like total number of points on the board. And I think when I'm building out my lists, and I think this ties into like whether you're choosing to run attrition or mission team or like a mid range where you can do both. You're picking kind of extracts and secures based on like how fast is this going to go, and how many resources do I need to expend in order to keep pace the scoring, right? So I think that one's like pretty huge for me. In general, I mean, I think historically I've run mostly more attrition lists than mission playing or mid range. So like when you're running attrition, it's especially like helpful when you're building your list to think like, how do I stop scoring, right? Because you're playing a different game. You're playing the damage game, or you're setting yourself up for swing turns. So in order to do that, you have to kind of limit your opponent's ability to create a gap between you and your score while you're doing damage. Because like turn 1, I know there's some like plays out there, or there were in the past, but nowadays it's like really hard to do, unless you spike, like to do a ton of damage on turn 1. Your averages are like, relatively low, all things considered. So yeah.
Yeah, at the time of recording, with Great Refuge being banned, I think there's more or less a little less alpha striking these days, at least from the most egregious faction that could do it. There's some still like APOC can still like get at least a good hit on you, right? round one for the most part. But really, it's hard to get double tapped by a really big bruiser these days, I think.
And dice spikes happen, right? But we're trying to when you're planning your thing too, you're trying not to set yourself up for thinking about dice spikes because on average, that's not going to happen. That's a totally different topic about adapting, but chances are if Black Cat grabs a midline extract, she's probably not going to die, depending on what you're playing into. So she does become a more reliable, she's one of the web's more reliable extract picker-uppers.
Yeah, and I think it also should be stated that that's also going to be in the context of what the counter deployment is going to look like, right? Which is something we'll cover on another episode. But
not today.
having that long move, right, is in some durability does give her a lot of options, right? Which is really good for just a good mission play as a whole.
Yeah, and all these things do tie together, right? Because when you're picking your characters, you're thinking about turn one, but you're also thinking about, well, where am I going to put them so my opponent doesn't understand my plan, right? Or it's harder for them to understand what's going on or what I'm going to do or how I'm going to open. So these are all kind of tied together. But that being said, I think in terms of pace, scoring pace is something you need to think about. Is my team really good at scoring quick because I can put a lot of models on the board, or is my team going to benefit from slowing down the game in order to punch that much harder?
Yep. Ben, I want to ask, also, since you actually have an actual set of missions that you do really like. So what are characteristics that you think are very important for you in case also we do a rotation of missions right later on? What kind of characteristics would you be looking for, starting from zero from mission design that you would be this is going to be a Ben mission, for instance?
Yeah. So for me, one of my first questions I ask is, how close is this map? Are we going to have the ability to have action compression by not moving, right? So one of the reasons why I love Macran is you can sit at the midpoint of one Macran, if you're at the middle of one Macran, and you can, with a range 4 attack, affect 2 other Macrans. So the way that my brain works with this is that's a form of action compression. I don't have to have characters that have a ton of mobility because, I can just sit here and slap you from really far. So that's something that's really important to me when I'm looking at lists. I also try to think of something that you both had mentioned. How quick is this game going to be? When I was playing Apocalypse, hyper competitively and recognizing, all of the things that Apocalypse can do, one of the scarier matchups was Inhumans. My mentality was, if I don't lose by round 3 because of the crisis selection, I'm going to win this game. Because Inhumans really struggled with maintaining action or maintaining attrition presence over the long haul. They're going to hit you really freaking hard at the start of the game, but often one of the more funny responses that I think Mike from Danger Room coined or picked it up somewhere of just punch them back, right? Which is, spoiler alert, one of my default answers. So I think it's really important as we think about crisis selection and character selection. Action compression is really important in those conversations. For me, this is why Intrusions generally never leaves my personal crisis rotation unless it's going to get rotated out of the game, is because now I have a Magneto who, unless he gets pushed off the point, which is may or may not easy to do, please give that man a helmet. He can hop through the different portals and still have actions to affect the game, which I think is really powerful and meaningful to the way that I like to play this game. So hopefully, if that answers your question, it's kind of my general thought process. It could be right, could be wrong, could be a little bit of both. So
yeah. No, that's good, Ben. Like I appreciate it. I guess the thing I would ask you guys is that do the tertiary effects of the prices also affect you? For instance, like if you were like, okay, I definitely want to put cubes in my list. Does that mean I also want to take a character that either has like Inure to Pain, like not like a Bill, or like a let's say a healing factor model, perhaps that can take the damage and heal it back? Like, does that ever like affect your list building for as far as tertiary aspects of the crisis?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for me, yeah, that's great. That's a great.
No, it definitely does. I'm thinking about Terrigen right now. That's going.
So for me, the effects of the crisis are usually the tiebreaker of whether or not I want to take this. My two main concerns are going to be how fast is this going to be. So one of the reasons I've never had cubes in any of my rosters is it scores way too fast. It's a cool attrition-ish crisis in that it does damage to my opponents. But one of the things, I was talking to a player recently who was looking for some advice on the Mighty Avengers. They had Infinity Formula in their roster. And one of the questions I asked was, so you play the shape fine, you like the threat value fine, but as a power generating affiliation with an effect that's going to give you more power, is that going to give you the edge over your opponent, or is that allowing your opponent to catch up to your power generation? I think is something that a lot of folks don't spend enough time in their roster creation of, I think I can kind of wrap my head around how this affects me. How is this going to affect my opponents? Is this going to help them out more than it's going to help me? I think that should be a serious consideration for a lot of our rosters is, moving forward, how does this affect your list and their list? And is this going to help you more than it's going to help your opponent?
Yeah. So, Stephen, did you have thoughts on Terrigens? Because, Terrigens is a very interesting question.
Yeah. So I think the most clear-cut thing, too, another example of, like, this is kind of like picking characters and picking missions. So, like, in my, I guess Criminal is a really good example, or maybe not really good, but they're definitely an example. So, like, when you have a character who can succeed, or his card really helps kind of stack mission effects, it can really allow you to pick a character and a mission that you kind of know you're going to take. And I think the Terrigen canisters with Abomination is like it's pretty well known that that's like a pretty solid combo, because if you have a team that doesn't care about the small move, or like has ways to mitigate kind of like the punishing effect, having your opponent just kind of start with poison as they pick up extracts and play the mission just turns his kit online. Yeah, it makes it even more powerful from the get-go. So like kind of stackable characters. I think that's another thing that I do when I'm picking, when I'm thinking about mission effects, is like, well, are there characters out here who like highly, highly benefit from this? And does my affiliation have easy access to like slide that in? So, I mean, A-Bomb's a good example. He's not the only example.
Yeah, I think, A-Bomb's very, very interesting because he definitely gets a direct benefit, right, from that particular crisis, even though he might be slowed down a little bit. The fact is that atomic fart that he has just becomes so much more dangerous because people are just inadvertently getting poisoned.
Yeah. So I think a good example maybe is like if you're playing Midnight Suns and or the old Midnight Suns with A-Bomb, who's going to dive on an F shape, you can like dive and fart, and you know what I mean, on Terrigen, and it's just like it feels bad because you're also maintaining an extract lead with a really tough character. But yeah. So there's like things like that pop up.
Yeah, I go back and forth, like if I think Terrigen canisters is like actually good for webs or not. The poison is really bad because they're relatively power starved leadership, but there are a lot of characters within a faction that either have a web whip or a web swing, right? That really kind of doesn't care the fact that your speed is reduced to an S, for instance. So it's been an interesting back and forth, and I think that comes down to like, it's like, okay, this may or may not be good depending on like the actual squad selection that you take, right? Do you have a lot of characters with place effects, or do you rely on a lot of long movers within faction, right? So webs have both, right? So if you take a Ghost Spider and Black Cat, they might be in trouble because they can't get anywhere potentially, like with Terrigen canisters.
Yeah,
but like Scarlet Spider and 2099 or a Spectacular Spider-Man may not feel that as much there.
Yeah, I think not just place effects too. Like I'm thinking like Gambit, like something you ping, you get a move, things like that. Like out of sequence, or I guess they're not out of activation move. Just free movement tools, right?
Extra movement, right?
Extra movement.
If your character has extra ove beyond the normal move action advance, right? That can be very interesting when you have a crisis like Terrigen canisters.
Yeah, because I've actually like been going back to on Sunday I like woke up and I was like, all right, I wrote down all these things about areas of my game I wanted to improve, and then I was like, I'm gonna play APOC again and like pretend I have no idea what's going on. And so I was like, I'm gonna slide Terrigen in here because like we've got Gambit, we've got Magic, we've got APOC, and I want to see what happens. And it's a faster scoring game where you can like put on more control. I know, Ben, that's nothing we ever see from your APOC list, but but I do, it is a consideration just because it's fast scoring. You can play the control game more easily on it, right? So it allows you to play the game you want to play, basically, which is kind of the theme here, right?
Yep. Well, one of the things that I love about Winter Guard, for example, here's a low tier affiliation that has so many different build options of how do you want to play this affiliation? Do you want to play them controlled? Do you want to play them condition heavy? Do you want to play them, XYZ? There's a lot of really neat things that you can do, and they're not necessarily wrong. Some are going to be a little bit easier than others, but I really appreciate that about some of these affiliations that AMG has put out. So, except there's lots of options, moving forward that you can take as individuals who are trying to list build and innovate. Some of the higher affiliations do feel a little figured out, but at the same time, there's enough innovation in the game where you can still try to play what you want to play. And so, Steve, I really like that idea of like, hey, I'm gonna play a different crisis selection with Apocalypse just to see how it goes, right?
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that, because sometimes, based off the crisis draw, you may just be like, well, I'm stuck on this, and we're just gonna see where this goes.
I think it's important too to like we're because we were talking a lot about like missions we're good at, like to understand that there is some depth to that. So like maybe you're I'm going to use something that's a very controversial topic in our own group chat. Maybe you're playing Cabal and you're like, I don't want to play that stupid Kang down the middle game. You're welcome, Waller. But I want to play my B maps, which I'm good at. Who's going to be more successful on like kind of these missions that I guess like I don't know where I was going with that. Damn it, I'm so bad at this.
Well, you just wanted to fuss at Mike, which I respect.
I took this opportunity to bash Waller.
To bash Waller.
But to your point, though, I think it is important to like play the things that you may be bad at. Like you can take our word that like XYZ is bad in this particular layout, this matchup. But it really is good for you to sort of just feel it right out and just be like, it's like, oh, okay, I'm seeing some limitations here, or like, oh, it's a B shape, and this team has a lot of trouble rotating right from one side to the other. If the extracts had to go to one side, right, and that could be something that is like, oh, I need to either splash for this or think about a new game plan, right, in case I come up with this like, situation. What were you saying, Ben?
Yeah, so, and I think that's a really good awareness is recognizing that just because the community or a podcast says something is bad doesn't mean you shouldn't try it. I always encourage people, hey, look, I think this is bad, but you try it and see if you can crack the code, if you see something that I don't, just because we have a forum in which you can hear our voices doesn't make our voices the supreme knowledge.
Wait. Unless you're talking about which Cabal list is better.
Or that. So, for me, in my apocalypse list, I never took out scrolls. And that was perceived by a lot of players in the community as something that was bad for Apocalypse. One, mainly because of how strong Inhumans were with Great Refuge and Terra Genesis. So there were so many people. We laughed, Jin, and a lot of folks laughed at WTC, where people were so afraid to take civilian extracts because of how strong Inhumans were. Well, for me, I had a game plan I knew what I was trying to do with scrolls, that even if I came up against the Inhuman matchup, I was fine. And spoiler alert, I still ended up being okay into Inhumans with scrolls. One of my more famous losses on scrolls was against She-Hulk, and we're not going to talk about that right now, okay? But it's important to recognize that just because the community is saying something is bad, or your local friends are saying something that's bad, just give it a try. See if you think it's bad. Just try it. Play a couple of reps, and go from there. That's where innovation comes out, and this is why we spent some time talking about the turn 0, turn 1. Is the more you do that, the more you'll have opportunities to really actually see if you're right or wrong about that.
Yeah, and also on that note, because you were the one that on that note, like what they tell you is good may not work for you. So like, Ben, you love Mcron, and I was asking you for APOC advice back in like September, October. And you're like, well, run Mcron in these missions. And I did. And like, it wasn't months later till I was like, I don't play well on those missions.
What is Ben thinking? He's crazy. And that's true.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're exactly right. Thanks, Steve. That hey, what works for me doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work for everybody else.
Yeah. Yeah. And good and bad, right? So like,
yes,
I think the best, what you're kind of summarizing up there is like, the initial, we talked about like what things you should think of, but like when you actually have your like 10 and you have, your missions, don't, just like the core, like having a core and like that being training wheels, don't like be completely committed to every single one of those. If you see something, and I wouldn't do it after one game, like that's another caveat. Like, don't like play on Mcron and be like, oh my God, my opponent had a 9-point swing, but like something like that. Like maybe wait a few games on the same mission, like, get your reps in, like, and then assess and be like, is this good for me? Is this bad for me? I think when you've played a lot of like one affiliation, you start to see things. And like listening to podcasts and stuff is not a bad idea. Like you're clearly doing that right now, but like use it as like a stepping stone to give you ideas to like go back to your own play style or your own decision making, right? Because at the end of the day, like, Ben, Jin, and I are on here, telling you things. We're not you, and we're not playing what you're playing. And we're not going to play what you play the same way as we would, right? And our voices are just because we're, people in our, late 30s who have a lot of free time. So, like...
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. There is a demographic.
Speak for yourself there, bucko. All right.
Jin, why do you have to leave today? Is it gaming related?
Got him.
I
have to get on Jin's freaking Black Book appointment list to be like, Jin, when can we play? Like, sorry, get in line, take a number.
Ben, you can't ask me like 30 minutes before.
Yeah. Exactly, Jin. It's great.
Just do what Waller does. Ask him at 11:45 at night because he's almost always available at that time.
That is true. There's a lot of facts there.
Bump.
Yeah, well, that's more annoying actually when some people, maybe not you, Ben, but Waller definitely will hit me up at fucking 11:30. I'm like lying in bed, like drifting off.
Get on the game.
Like, dude, I'm not fucking getting up.
It's great.
Anyway, having frequent training partners is also a great way for you to get better at this game and try stuff as well. is actually our lightweight ribbon Waller, but he's actually a really good practice partner.
Yeah, no, I practice with Waller like a lot, in all honesty, and he always has good ideas because he always brings like pretty meta stuff into me. So it's usually like a reevaluation. And I know Jin, you and I practice a lot too on occasion. So having a set of friends or buddies, also having people who like, I mentioned this earlier. If you're working on your turn 0, or maybe I didn't mention it on the podcast, but I definitely spoke these words out loud at some point today. If you're like working on your turn 0, be like, hey, reach out to someone, be like, I don't want to play a game. I want to deploy, run through turn 1, and redeploy. And you can do that in person. You can do that on TTS, but either way, like that's a really good strategy to like really work on, how you're constructing your characters and your missions and the way they interact in that early game. Because I've come to realize myself that early game is like probably the most important part of like the entire game, because it sets up like basically where you're going to interact with your opponent.
Right. It's the part of the game you actually have the most control over, right? Is your roster selection, your squad selection, right? And like where you deploy your stuff, right? Everything else after your initial moves that, if you practice them and realize like, it's like, okay, cover's here, these guys should go there, or this extract's over here. This is line of sight blocking terrain, etc. Once that's all done, and those are the easy moves that are done, the hard moves and the tactical moves are now going to be in play, right? And that's going to be up to your decision making. Yeah, but this is something that like you can sort of make, not necessarily muscle memory, but you can definitely give yourself more confidence. Like, okay, we've run the numbers, we've thought about the layouts, like we have a plan right here.
Yeah, and trying to have a practice partner who kind of understands the same goal setting, I think is really, really important. So I think that's a really good shout out. Is that not everyone is going to want to do that, and so just being very upfront with someone. If you're trying to really increase your competitive game, that's something that you want to find is a practice partner who is willing to kind of put through the reps and just kind of go through the motions so that you can get the best look that you can possibly get.
Yeah. And usually like that's pretty easy to find. Like I guess I do it with my friends, so I don't know, but I don't know. I don't know where I was going with that. What the fuck is wrong with me?
Don't worry. He's got a podcast. It's fine.
Yeah, we will still practice work, even if we make fun of your chicken titty sometimes, because we believe in a shared commonality of goal setting, I think.
Yeah. I mean, our games have been really good, Jen, so I'm not like they've always been good. Especially good when I walk over and just kill your whole team with my Midnight Suns.
Right. Yeah. This is very informative. I learned so much during this.
I couldn't help it, man. I could not help that one. I was like, well, there's another 6 crits.
To be fair, listeners, the next game Steven and I played, I did exactly the same thing back to him, and he was also having just as fun as I was.
Jin giveth and Jin taketh away.
The old meta slaps. The old meta slaps.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that's really important too. Is being able to talk with your practice partner and recognizing what are you trying to get out of this game, right? Yeah. So if you're trying to gear yourself to more competitive MCP, and having a regular practice partner and just go figure, open communication is like really good and healthy and important. And trying to have those conversations with your practice partner is saying, I am trying to solve this. Can you run into this? I lovingly joke that if somebody needs apocalypse testing, that's when I get the message, right? People go, hey, Ben, can you run apocalypse? So maybe someday AMG will set me free and nerf apocalypse.
I sure hope not.
Free Dobby. But that's a really important framework to talk to your friends, talk to your practice partner. How are you going to deal with dice spikes? Are you going to re-roll them? Are you just going to ride the wave? Sometimes when I'm short on time, we just agree beforehand, we're going to take the averages. So no dice spikes. What if this was a game of completely average dice rolls? And sometimes those are really informative games because you're able to get more of those games. It's a really neat thing. And again, that's a kind of a turn zero conversation. We have this is somewhat similar in that, for people who play role-playing games, this is the importance of a session zero, talking about what as a group you're okay with, what you're not okay with, where do you think the campaign's going, all of those things. You can have similar conversations with your miniature games. Hey, this is what I'm looking for. Back when Malekith, first release Malekith came out, we had a conversation because I was more involved in a store out in Rochester at the time, to say, hey, if you're bringing Malekith, you're not going to play with that model unless it's requested on, because it was so unfun to play against, right? And that was just a session, zero conversation that we had with everyone at the store, and what turned out was people had a better time. It really kind of safeguarded the community into having a good time with each other, rather than someone who's brought this big, scary, dark elf cat man against somebody who didn't know what's going to happen, and they drove for an event or for a pickup night and got slapped by OG Catman, which was not a fun time for listeners who may be unaware of original Malekith. So. And I think those are important things when we're talking about turning up your game, right? Upping your game, setting expectations, having those conversations, I think are really, really important.
Yeah, absolutely. And based on our kind of topic tonight as well, like finding, I take for granted the fact that like I'm embedded in this community, so I can literally reach out. Well, I think actually, even if you're not embedded in this community, if you're on a Discord channel, chances are you can either look for game and set that intention with someone, or you can reach out to the more well-known or more vocal voices and ask them for their help. I know that, like, despite joking about how I'm not busy, I am pretty busy. So like, if I have the time, I'm absolutely willing to like walk through some of that with someone. And it's also a useful tool for me, right? Like if you're like, okay, we're going to sit down on TTS or something, and we're going to run through up to turn 0 re-rack. And we're going to do that 3 times. And you're allowed to like make list changes if you, or, figure something out or try a new mission, and we won't use the same mission twice or something like that. Having that kind of like, we're going to set this expectation so we can really quickly begin to work on our opening. Right.
Yeah. 1000%. 1000%.
And people are more than willing to do that. Like, cause everyone has parts of their game they're trying to improve. I think the hardest thing to like, try to improve with in terms of practice hours is if you're like, I'm really weak in my late game, because then you have to play the whole game, right?
Right. Well, yeah. All right.
Yeah. But
you got to do it, though. You got to do it.
Yeah,
man.
you got to do it. I know. If you want to get better, you do have to do those things. So is there anything we didn't cover today about like characters, missions, anything we want to say more on that topic?
I guess like if I can just rewrap, I guess if I can do a TLDR version of like,
what does that stand for?
Okay, too long didn't read is what the kids say these days. Steven,
we just call that benning.
What if it's too long? Can't read. Sorry.
Wait, are you referencing the new Kang cards? Because those are way too long for me to read.
Really long.
Listen, I'm totally not wrong in my interpretation of those whatsoever, Steven. What are you talking about?
way too long, Angie. If I want to read a book, I'll go to fucking Barnes and Noble.
You get a very simple leadership, but man, these tactics cards, those are dense.
Who knows?
Yeah, they're also really confusing to me, so I've read them multiple times. Anyways, Jim.
Okay.
You're just talking about reading.
Yeah, okay. So, listeners, and so to summarize, because we jumped around to quite a few bit of topics here, okay? But the most streamlined version of what we talked about, I think it's going to be like, it's like, hey, either start with your crisis that you want to like get good in, or your affiliation that you want to play, and make sure that those work in tandem together to be the missions that you actually, and affiliations to work together you want. Make sure you take your characters, with the specific ideas and roles they have in mind, and having their round 1 and round 2 sort of like activations kind of planned out as far as like what they're going to do in the different crisis combinations. And I think that's going to be a very good way for you to test if, characters need to be added to your list, removed from your list. And, if you need to have anything else besides, like additional affiliations, different leaders or different stuff. We'll touch on tactics cards, I guess, in the future. But I think that's how I would kind of sum up is like, make sure your base foundation needs to work together, and you need to be able to visualize your first couple rounds with the characters you've chosen. And I think that's going to help a lot. Whether or not you're, taking like a Zemo or like, Viper, like it doesn't matter. Like you need to make sure there's a vision for these characters, right? When you're taking them in your list for what they're doing.
Yeah, that was excellently summarized. Ben, do you have any? Do you want to follow that?
I mean, I just heard Jin say that we should be playing Sin Cabal, so that's.
Hey! Someone in this podcast may have one that they have to try out soon.
So just you heard it here, folks. Sin Cabal coming to your neighborhood. Yeah, I think just also just recognize that as you're trying to get better. In the grand scheme of things, this is a plastic toy game, so. Have fun, enjoy yourself, enjoy the ride.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's really important to remember that you might be good at other things when you're feeling down.
Yeah,
this game.
Your value doesn't come from a Longshanks rating.
Yeah, please make sure you enjoy your time with toy soldiers or with other human beings, IRL or over computer. We are all trying to have a good third space time in this crazy world right now.
That being said, I think since we kind of talked a lot about generalist things, coming up with a plan for your plan to get better, right, is a really useful tool. So maybe even, I know it's some people call it nerdy, specifically people that rhyme with Spike, but whip out a notebook and be like, I want to work on this month, or for when I play on TTS, for example, sometimes when I'm trying to break through the ceiling right now, as everyone who talks to me has fucking heard me say. But I have like a note card next to me that's like, remember XYZ. Like, and when I'm playing on TTS, I can easily look down, and it's just another tool to structure my time, right? So, take those tools, whatever works for you. Some people have spreadsheets about like who they played, what they played into, what missions they played on, and they look at that. So like whatever works for you, in order to kind of like help you play a little bit better at your toy soldiers, is a good tool. So playing another game helps too, by the way.
Don't forget also that both things like Jarvis and like Longshanks do allow you to record games, even if they're non-tournament games. So as long as you're willing to put in that information and invest that time into putting out some sort of recordable data, that you can always reflect them back to it. And on top of things like a notebook, like Steven said, if that's whatever purpose, either analog or digital, like bookkeeping.
Yeah, like Falco did that for a while. Another person that Ben doesn't like me to bring up.
Falco, if you're listening to this, don't you diddle me again.
He got Falco.
I got Falco.
Yeah, so this was going to be an ongoing series. We're pretty excited about like continuing this. And it's something we want to do for a long time. And now that the faction focuses are basically over, we can start doing more content like this. So you can follow us at aliveon1@gmail.com. Join our Discord. Leave a review on Apple or Spotify. Soon, I think in February, we're starting the AOS content too. So that'll be separate from this again for those who like to skip. Although I changed the timestamp, so suck it. And then our affiliate, Huge Miniatures, link is below. And as always, Godspeed, Sabretooth, and not Kane. Good night.
Good night. I added step 2 on sign off now, in parentheses, okay?
Okay, so Jin has step 2 on sign off, but listeners, this is the end of the episode. I just want to publicly thank Ben. Thank you, Ben, for coming on tonight.
I want to publicly accept your appreciation.
You should have rejected it.
Get wrecked, nerd.
And with that, this is really goodbye. So Godspeed, not Kang.